Hi, my name is Xiaoqian and my project is a mashup between the Spotify API and the SeatGeek API. The user will submit their username to the form, but this is just for show because the API endpoint I use to get the data I need does not require the actual user ID. Once the user logs into Spotify, it uses the account to get the data. But for the project requirements, I just had the user enter their username. User send the request to client, and client sends 200 OK back to user with landing page and username form. User enters their Spotify username. If username is blank for message, username cannot be blank. User can return to previous page to enter a valid username. Redirect to Spotify. State response is called redirect to Spotify authentication. User signs into Spotify and grants access to the application to access their info under the scope. User top rate, which only provides access to the user's top listened to artists. Browser sees 302 and creates GET request to Spotify API with code and redirect URI. Browser sees 302 creates a new GET request to localhost 80, receive code with code state. User is redirected back to the server with the code that gives explicit permission for client ID to interact with this user's account under user top rate. Server check if code or state are invalid. If they are good, then proceed with request access token. Access token request is approved 200 OK plus access token sent back. Receive access token receives and processes access token and then calls get top artist access token response. Access token is authenticated and then metadata for user's top artist is returned. Receive artist body response receives and process metadata to pull out the name and picture of the artist and then passes that info to find concerts, which gets event info from the SeatGeek API. Waiting to get the artist info from the Spotify API before the API request for SeatGeek is made ensures that the requests are synchronous. Access key is accepted and event info is sent back to the server. Received events is the last function needed for the mashup. Body contains the event metadata from SeatGeek. Displays the user's top Spotify artist name and picture. Info obtained from the event metadata are the venue's name, address, and zip code, and the concert's title and the URL to purchase the ticket. I'm using 3-legged OAuth for Spotify since the user has to sign into their account, and I'm using API key for SeatGeek. The endpoints I'm using are Spotify.authorize get to get the user to authorize my Spotify API app with their account. This is part of the 3LO. Spotify.api.token to get access token with the client ID and client password. Spotify the top artist endpoint to get the logged in user's top artist. SeatGeek events.top artist client ID passes the user's top artists from the Spotify API call in a search result alongside the API key for SeatGeek. The client ID works as the API key for a SeatGeek API according to the documentation and gets the event info back. The landing page is requested from the client by the user. The user sees the landing page and is asked to input their username. If the username is blank, the client displays an arrow and asks the user to input again. They can go back to the landing page and put their username again without having to restart the server. After the username is entered, it goes to localhost get events. The request is caught from the HTML page and passed to the connection handler as input. The first request is made through the redirect to Spotify function, which directs the user to the Spotify authentication where they can sign in and authorize the app. They are given the scope, which is user top rates, which gives the top artist info. After the authorization is successful, the redirect URI is localhost receive code with the code and randomized state. If the code or state is undefined, then there is a 400 error message. Here, the cache is implemented. If the access token was already retrieved, it will be saved to authentication res.json. So the current time is generated and then it is compared to see if it is less than the expiration, which is the amount of milliseconds until the token expires. If it is less, then it goes straight to the get top artist request with the access token that is cached. Otherwise, it goes to request access token. The next request is for the access token to the API token Spotify endpoint. It gives the client ID and secret as an authorization header with the redirect URL as localhost receive code. Once the access token is received and processed, it is cached, and then the get top artist function is called. Get top artist sends the access token as authorization header to get the logged in user's top artist. The metadata is received and then the top artist and top artist pictures are taken out with results.items.name and results.items.image.url. With the artist info, find concerts is called to the SeatGeek events endpoint with the SeatGeek API key. This displays the user's top Spotify artist name and picture obtained from the event metadata or the venue's name, address, city and state and zip code, and concert's title and URL to go purchase tickets for the concert. Thank you.